Hi, and welcome to today's session. My name is Joe Brito. I'm a psychotherapist, coach, and hypnotist that lives and works in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada. Today I thought I'd do a quick video on hypnosis, kind of give you a quick overview. It's generated by the questions that I get most frequently about hypnosis. I had done one prior, top 5 things that I was asked for hypnosis, but this is a little bit more specific in terms of a little bit of the pre-talk that I do with clients. So let's dive right in. So the first thing is around myths and misconceptions. So we start with who can't be hypnotized, and know and understand there's only 4 types of people that can't be hypnotized. The first, you'll hear a theme too. The first is if you have an IQ below 70. And the reason why that person has difficulty being hypnotized is because they have trouble paying attention to me. The second type of person that can't be hypnotized is if you are actively in psychosis. So if you are seeing things that aren't there, hearing things that aren't there, hallucinating, obviously it makes it very difficult to pay attention to me. Third category is if you're under the influence of a drug or medication that also causes hallucinations and that kind of stuff, because it makes it hard to pay attention to me. And the last category is if a person doesn't want to. So it's kind of a key component. The right mindset will allow a person to be successful, and we'll get into mindset just in a few moments. The next category is really what is hypnosis like? It's actually a state of focused attention. It is not a state of sleep. Now, the reason why that's confusing is because a lot of times if you've seen stage or even on TV, they usually look at the person and say, sleep. But actually it's a state of focused attention. It's a state where you're super aware actually of your environment. You're more aware of sounds. You're more aware of smells. It's actually what athletes will call the zone. And if you are an athlete and you have been in a zone, or a musician and have been in the zone, there's kind of a distortion of time. It's like you're so enthralled in what you're doing in the current moment that everything else seems to just not exist. The best example I can give you of that is if you've ever come home from a long day's work and you just want to lay down on the couch for just a few minutes and just get, as soon as you get comfortable, it seems like, somebody says, Joe, can you come here? And it's like you could hear them, but it's like, oh, you just fade away just for a minute. Just give me 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. You know, the feeling when you close your eyes and it just feels so good. It's really like that. So some people were confused initially when I didn't do a good job of a pre-talk, which is really, really important if you get into hypnosis, because clients really don't know what to expect. And a lot of times it's based on misconceptions. So clients would often say, geez, I don't know if I was hypnotized because I heard everything you said. Well, of course you did, because otherwise, how would you know you were done? So now I just do a little bit better job in doing a pre-talk, and that eases the person's expectation into hypnosis. The next thing is around loss of control. Now, in the example I gave you of being on the couch, that's kind of a good one to kind of illustrate that there's no loss of control. In fact, you're more in control. You can't be made to do things against your will or anything like that. You, like I said, have a heightened sense of what you want to do with regards to your goal. And there has to be an agreement between the hypnotist and the person that they want to work on the issue that is mentioned in that session. What will I hear or not hear? Actually, you will hear everything. Sometimes clients go really close between a state of trance and a state of sleep. So sometimes in my sessions they say, geez, it feels like I didn't hear you a little while. And actually for me, it's just doing a good job recognizing where they are. And if they do fall asleep, I just bring them up a couple levels to where they can pay attention to me. Otherwise, it's just a nap. And I really want them to pay attention so that they can get the full benefit of what hypnosis is really about. And the last myth that really is talked about is mind control. And like I mentioned previously, you're actually more in control than not. So let's kind of dive into how the brain really works and how this the mindset is so critical to making hypnosis really work. So there's 4 layers of the conscious mind. There's the analytical part, there's the willpower, there's the temporary memory, and there's the rational part of the brain. Now, the analytical part helps you make decisions. It's your 1 + 1 = 2 brain. Willpower is a surge of energy that helps you stay on your goal. Unfortunately, willpower usually lasts about 4 days. So if you're trying to lose weight or go on a diet, it's usually short-lived. You have that momentum usually, but it's not very sustainable over time if you just use willpower. Temporary memory is all the short-term stuff that you will retain in the brain. And now the last part is the rational part. Now the rational part is interesting because the rational part helps maintain status quo. So if we take a deep look into the subconscious mind, the rational part of the brain is actually your gatekeeper. Where the orange circle is, there's an essential element called the critical factor. And the critical factor is housed within that rational brain. And the critical factor is really your detector of BS, which may be on high right now, by the way. It just helps you analyze whether or not you want to make some changes. Now, know that our subconscious mind, yours, mine, everybody's, at its core is lazy. The best predictor of tomorrow's behavior is actually what you did yesterday. It likes the status quo. So we have to help it change. Now, how do we help it change is by usually having the correct mental attitude. So just for a moment, let's look at what's within the subconscious mind. So it contains all of our beliefs about ourselves. It contains obviously our emotions, our autonomic nervous system, like you're breathing right now, but you don't have to think about it. Your brain, actually your subconscious mind, is taking care of that for you. So it's a really, really powerful mechanism that is the best predictor of where you will go with regards to your goal. Now, having the correct mental attitude is key to making hypnosis work. Now, there's 4 types of mental attitudes that you can have. The first one is obviously the best. The first one, it's that this will work. I really want this session. So let's have a goal of, I want to increase my confidence. It has to be something that the person desperately wants. So know that when I have a client coming in that wants to work on addiction or they want to work on smoking, I make sure that this is something that they really want. Otherwise, that critical factor will reject any of the work that we're talking about. The second mental attitude you can have is that you feel uncomfortable. Now, that could be uncomfortable by the setting, uncomfortable by me, that I make the person nervous, but just uncomfortable about something. Really, it's another great word for anxiety. So if the person is feeling anxious about anything with regard to the session, it's obviously in the direct opposite way to relaxation, which is where we want to be. The third position is that you feel neutral. If this works, cool. If it doesn't, I don't really care. Actually, that's not the correct mental attitude with regards to bypassing critical factor, because in the neutral mind, the mind doesn't care, and therefore it will sustain the past behavior. And the last mental attitude you can have is, I hope this works, or I'll give it a try. One of the key components I say to hope and try is I'll usually put an object in front of the person. So this is just a small case. And I'll say to them, okay, I want you to try to pick that up. Now, most of the time people will look at me like I'm asking them a trick question and they will pick it up. And I say, no, I didn't ask you to pick it up. I asked you to try to pick it up. And then they hesitate like, how do you try to pick it up? And I say, exactly right. You can't try to do anything. You're either all in or all out. You can't have your foot on the dock and a foot in the boat. You're either on the dock or in the boat. So I encourage my clients to come with me in the boat and go on this magical journey called hypnosis. So again, I return to the fact that the best mindset to have is the first one, that this will work. So I'd like to finish with just some examples of everyday trance. So the first one I listed here is highway trance. So highway trance is, have you ever had this experience where you're driving down the road like a highway, or even on the way home from work? So you're driving home from work and you're thinking about supper, or you're thinking about the trip you'd like to take, or the girl you'd like to ask out, or whatever that may be. And then you pull in the driveway, or you reach a point in your destination if you're on the highway, and you go, whew, I don't remember driving. That's what highway trance is like. Notice trance is an interchangeable word for hypnosis. Now, what do you notice in that example? 1, you're not out of control. 2, your eyes were actually wide open. And 3, it just felt like you're a passenger in your own car. So that's a great example of just kind of everyday trance. The second example is starting or going back to your job. Now, I know when I started one of the jobs that I had for, let's say, the college or the Center for Addiction Mental Health, it seemed so overwhelming. Like, I'm never going to remember all the things that I need to do and tackle on a daily basis. But after a short period of time, usually several weeks to a month, then you get into this flow where your workflow becomes easy and automatic. That's where it becomes much more subconscious. But know that when you start a new job, you have to think of everything. So that's really the difference between the subconscious mind, where you don't have to think too much. That doesn't mean that you don't think on the job. It just means that we usually do our automatic patterns where we only have to involve our brains about 20% of the time of our everyday life work. So the last thing is just a fun example of the alphabet. Now, if I asked to time you right now, and I would ask you to do a task, actually it's going to be 2 tasks. The first task, I want you to do it as quickly as you can, A to Z. Is the alphabet. Sorry, I gave it away. I want you to do the alphabet in your head, A to Z, as quickly as you can. Ready? Go. Probably by about now you're done. So it's usually about 4 to 7 seconds people get it done. The competitive ones get it done in about 4 seconds. And the ones that kind of trottle along usually get it done in about 7 seconds or so. Now the second task is also a time task. I want you to do it as quickly as you can. And you can do it in your head or out loud. So this time, I'd like you to say the alphabet. I'd like you to say the alphabet, but this time I'd like you to do it backwards, starting now. Notice how much more difficult the second task is. Now, maybe some of you are still continuing to try to do so. You could stop now. But notice how difficult the second task was. Why is that? The alphabet is a 26-letter pattern that we've known since we were 6 years old, but we've always learned it the same way. So if we change that pattern, it makes our logical brain come more into play. And when your logical brain comes more into play, it makes things much more complicated. So what I usually say to people, what's the difference between the first example and the second example? And usually the most common response is, I had to think about it. And that's correct. That's when the logical brain came into play. So that's good examples of the difference between really the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. And so with that, I hope that this has been helpful, just kind of as a general overview as to what hypnosis is, examples of trance, and the difference between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Thanks so much for joining me as you usually do. I'd love to hear from you, comments, likes if you felt like you did a good job today. I'd love to hear from you. With that, I wish you health, happiness, and a wonderful weekend. And we'll talk to you soon.